What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Great League Remix, and the team specifically that we're going to be looking at is Toxapex, Diggersby, and Pangoro. I talked about this team in my top teams video that went live yesterday, and the reason this team is so strong is because Toxapex covers Diggersby's and Pangoro's weaknesses really well. Pangoro being weak to fighting and fairy, and like bug, I guess, because it's karate chop and close combat are resisted, and it takes neutral damage because it's dark. Toxapex is a poison, so it deals with all of those. And then Diggersby is weak to water, it's weak to ice, and it's weak to grass, all of which Toxapex is good into. It is neutral into grass, but it has super effective coverage with poison jab and sludge wave. And then it resists water and ice. So a very strong core here. Diggersby also weak to fighting, which is resistant on Toxapex with the poison. So a few things before we get into this video. I apologize if there are any cuts during the video, or if I look jaded as hell, because I am just getting pummeled by allergies. There's nothing really I can do about it except take some medicine and hope for the best. But yeah, so that's been tough. The second thing is I just want to say a thank you to Homeslice Henry. I was recently watching his stream, and he basically gave me a shout out during his stream. He put my channel in chat, so if you're new here and you're from Homeslice Henry, I really appreciate you being here. But without further ado, let's hop into some battles. Don't want to bore you guys just yet. It's already 2 minutes into the video. So Talonflame, this is banned in this cup, so all right, awesome. First game is a dud. I'm assuming I accidentally queued into the Great League, but either way, we can play this out. This is a good lead. They come in with a Feraligatr. We respond with Pangoro. This isn't the non-shadow, so I can actually live a Hydro Cannon here, and they have no ability to farm me down because Shadow Claws are resisted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play to the CMP tie with a close combat, and this will be enough to KO the Feraligatr if they let this go. And my opponent does, because they wanted to call the bait. They come back in with Talonflame. I can go for one and the move to get my charge move off before I get KO'd. And now I can just realign Toxapex on Talonflame. The reason I only went for one in the move instead of two in the move there is because I was anticipating one turn lag. And I think I anticipated correctly, because I think I did get one turn lag when I brought my Toxapex back in. Either way, they shield, so I'm going to shield back. They come in with a Furret, which is not a great matchup for Diggersby because they have super effective Trailblaze, so I do chip with a Brine first, and now I'm coming in with my Diggersby. We can definitely take one super effective Trailblaze, but it gets scary after the second. I am going to throw the Fire Punch bait, but it looks like my opponent CMP tied me, but that was only enough for a Swift, so I'm actually going to let that go, and I'm going to save that shield in case that Talonflame is able to farm me down and get to a charge move. I just have to watch for a catch here. There's the catch, but my switch timer is not yet up, so I'm forced to go for a resisted move. Scorching Sands is the better charge move here, so I think it will be enough to KO, and it is. My opponent just can't get the Sucker Punch farm down, so they do end up throwing, but I believe they actually could have if they committed to it, because now I can shield this up, click the Fire Punch, and Fire Punch from this range isn't quite enough to KO the Furret, but a couple more poison jabs do, and we're able to take that first win. Okay, Toxapex and Dragonite. This is eligible for the Great League Remix, so I have a feeling this actually is the Great League Remix. I did see a lot of Dragonite today. My opponent does throw on alignment, allowing an entire poison jab in for free, which is super nice because we get that damage and we get that energy. I'm going to farm up to the Sludge Wave, and then I was going to bait, but my opponent tries to go for a catch onto their Grumpig. I'm going to throw anyways because I don't have a great answer here, and so I chip. I'm just now going to shield this up. I did give them quite a bit of an energy advantage, so I will have to throw almost immediately. And we do get to that Night Slash. Night Slash from this range will definitely be enough to KO, but my opponent wants to at least grab 2 shields from me. And I am going to give it to them. Dynamic Punch would one-shot Pangoro. How do I know? I tested it out. But I am going to overfarm once again. Now I have back-to-back Night Slashes, so my opponent can't shield this, or else they are just going to get immediately taken out. I now am going to farm up to back-to-back Night Slashes once again. Is the Dragonite willing to commit 2 shields? They are not. I bank a close combat. I switch into my Toxapex. I just barely am able to make it to a Brine. Is Brine enough to KO from this range? it is. So all that Dragonite's energy goes to waste, and now we have a Diggersby into a Tentacruel, and even though they have a slight advantage and even a slight energy advantage, and even though we get 1 turn lag, we should still be able to win this game because 1 Scald is not enough to KO. And a Scorching Sands nearly does. Plus the quick attacks, we have a Night Slash or a Close Combat loaded on the Pangoro. My opponent realizes this, so they just resign the match. Okay, Furret on the lead. The way I play this out is I always farm up to the Sludge Wave and I always bait with the Brine. For some reason, every single Furret that I played against shielded the Sludge Wave, which is exactly why I played it this way. I think they just wanted to boost up. So I am going for the Brine, and they do shield that up. So now, even if they go for a second Trailblaze, I'm going to let this go. So unless my opponent wants to go down 2 shields, then they're not coming out of this matchup with a win. I am able to outpace, make it now to the Sludge Wave because I baited, and Sludge Wave is actually enough to KO the Furret. So even though that was a neutral matchup there, we're able to take it. They try and go for a catch, and they actually snipe, and I do not get my charge move off, which is unfortunate. It is a Claydol in the back, and I do have super effective Night Slashes on my Pangoro, and my opponent's going to shield that, which is a little bit interesting. I'm assuming they're just going to go for the Rock Tomb, so I do no shield that. And even though Pangoro is glassy, it can eat that Rock Tomb from a bulky Pokemon, no problem. So now we're going to connect with the Night Slash, going to come in with our Diggersby. They can only throw Ice Beam, so I have a feeling because they farmed up to it that they're not baiting here, and they do full send the Ice Beam. I do correctly shield that up. I'm going to over farm here, now go for the Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands should be enough to get the knockout on the Claydol from this range, and it does. And now we have a Diggersby into a Tinkaton, and this is a great matchup for us. Play Rough does connect, but it looks like they're going to need 2+ Fairy Winds in order to get the knockout. And all we need here is a Scorching Sands plus a Fire Punch. My opponent eventually sees that, so they resign the match. Another Furret lead. So yeah, this Pokemon was everywhere. I'm surprised we're not seeing it on the safe switch. Instead, we're seeing it on the lead. Looks like we did get a little bit of lag there, so my opponent is able to get an extra Sucker Punch in there that they shouldn't have. But that is okay. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to overfarm. We're going to go for the Brine, baiting the Sludge Wave, and we do grab that shield, which is super nice. And so now, even if they go for another Trailblaze here, or even a Swift, we should be able to outpace by like 1 turn, and we do just barely get there. Sludge Wave should be enough to KO the Furret. Looks like the opponent's Furret's IVs are a little better, or just because we didn't get that Poison Jab in at the beginning, it's not enough to quite KO. So my opponent actually wins switch because of that. I am able to come in with my Diggersby. What is in the back but a Drifblim? So a bit interesting here. Drifblim obviously not a great answer to a Diggersby. They do have super effective Icy Wind, but the Astonishes, which my opponent is on instead of Hex, are resisted. So they're doing virtually no damage, which means my opponent has literally no ability to farm me down. I am just going to play out this matchup. And then I might switch out in my Pangoro just because I don't know what's in the back just yet. My opponent holds on to their energy, and it's a Machamp in the back. So I'm full setting the close combat here, and it connects. Goodbye, Machamp. So they just completely sacrificed it. Now we've got a loaded Drifblim, but I can just shield that up because Astonish is slow at energy generating. I can actually make it to a Night Slash before my opponent makes it to another Icy Wind. And we were able to grab that final shield. So at this point, this game is over. I can once again shield. I don't think a Night Slash will be enough to KO from this range at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bank that Night Slash just in case. Now I'm going to come in with the Diggersby, connect with the Fire Punch, and now we are absolutely winning this game. There's nothing my opponent can do because Pangoro wins CMP. So my opponent just resigns the match. Pangoro on the lead. This is a great lead for Toxapex. Obviously, Karate Chops and Close Combats are resisted, so they have to go for Night Slashes here, and they go for a catch onto their Corsola, which I am so sorry, opponent, but we have a Diggersby, which completely walls the Corsola. Power Jump and Nightshade both resisted, so my opponent just resigns the match. Neutral lead in the next match, we have a Guzzlord, and we have Brine, which is resisted, and Sludge Wave, which is really hard hitting and neutral. My opponent has not thrown any energy, which is why I'm very confident in baiting here, because I'm assuming they're going to want to get off this energy, so I do successfully get that Brine bait off. I don't usually bait this bunch, but it was really working out for me in these games. But either way, they have a Grumpig in the back, and because we've already grabbed a shield, I'm okay coming into this matchup without chipping, because I know one will not KO, but a second one definitely will, and I just got the boost. So now Pangoro is absolutely going to run away with this game. I am going to throw the Night Slash before they're able to make it to another, force that final shield from my opponent, or it was on CMP too, so that was really great timing. But I am just going to shield this back. I can always outpace the Grumpig here. They come back in with the Guzzlord. Sludge Bomb, they do have enough for a Sludge Bomb, and this will be enough to KO the Pangoro from this range. Actually, I lied. My Pangoro has pretty decent IVs, so I actually live that. I'm able to get to the close combat. That is double boosted. It would definitely KO from that range. And now what do I do here? I'm going to come in with the Toxapex. I'm going to get up to the Brine. Brine should be enough to KO the Grumpig from this range. And then what is that Pokemon in the back but a Shadow Feraligatr, which is also banned in this cup. However, there was a glitch in the first hour and a half where the shadow versions of these Pokemon were allowed and the non-shadows were not. So obviously that is a mistake. However, one Hydro is not enough to KO. Shadow Claws are double resisted. I'm going to overfarm as much as possible, making sure I can maximize the quick attack damage before I get off the Scorching Sands, and then Scorching Sands is still enough to KO the Feraligatr, so we're able to take that win. Toxapex into Ariados. This is a pretty great lead. The best thing they have for me, Poison Stings are resisted, Lunge is resisted. All they can do is neutral Trailblazes, and it's going to take a lot of these to take out the bulky Toxapex. And I can always throw a Brine before they make it to their next move. So here comes a Brine. They're never going to lower my attack with Lunge here because it's resisted, so I'm just going to keep letting these go and play this matchup out. They do go for another Trailblaze, and it looks like a third will be enough to knock out. So I'm just going to go for this Brine, either grab that shield or put it deep in the red. My opponent decides that they want switch, so they are going to throw right away. Trailblaze does knock me out. I'm going to come in with Pangoro, try to maximize the amount of farm I can get. I get one turn lag, which is unfortunate because now I'm forced to throw energy before they get to the charge move instead of on CMP, which is annoying because we would have been able to KO through the shield had we gotten the extra Karate Chop through, so my opponent wouldn't have been able to shield that, but the game makes up for it. It gives me a boost, and now, because they come in with Furret, I know that they are weak to me in the back, and we get a second boost, so now our attack is 4 times boosted, which is absolutely ridiculous. They're going to get Karate Chop farm down. They have an Umbreon in the back. Have you ever seen an Umbreon be one-shot before? Now you have. Pangoro gets the one-shot. They knew they were not going to make it to a charge move before I made it to back-to-back, so they basically just let that go and were able to take that win. Tough lead in the next match. We have a Whiscash on the lead. We're going to come in with the Diggersby, and my opponent comes in with a Shiftry. Now Shiftry obviously does have super effective coverage with Leaf Blade, and they do have very great pacing to it. However, they give me a slight energy lead, and Fire Punches are super effective as well, and it looks like my charge move actually did a little bit more than theirs did because Diggersby is just that bulky and Shiftry is just that glassy. That said, we are able to outpace the second time. Can we outpace the third time? Yes, we can, just by 1 turn, which is fantastic. Can we grab that second shield from my opponent, or are they going to give a switch? They're going to give a switch, which is fantastic. They're also going to throw their energy as soon as they get it, which is absolutely perfect. They did not want to get connected with a charge move. I still do not make it to a charge move, even though that does not KO. And now I can just come in with my Pangoro. I'm going to farm up to the close combat, baiting with the Night Slash. I know my opponent does not want to give up their Whiscash with energy, so they do end up shielding that. But at this point, I can just shield back. I have a pacing advantage, and I got that turn back with that Night Slash. So now in comes the close combat. They didn't even throw a Mud Bomb, but close combat from this range gets the knockout. What is in the back? It is a Skeledirge, and I'm going to overfarm massively here. I'm going to go for a Night Slash, and if I live that Incinerate, I can go for another Night Slash, and I do on literally 1 HP, which is crazy. but Toxapex would have been able to clean up this game either way, so because it was full health. But we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Toxapex into Bastiodon. Absolutely terrible lead. We're going to get out into our safe switch of Diggersby, where we have double super effective damage. My opponent comes in with a Greninja. Now, this is obviously a pretty poor matchup. So we lose lead, lose switch. However, that Scorching Sands connects, and now I think they're in Fire Punch range, and I don't think my opponent is going to bait. So I'm actually going to shield a Hydro. And they do make it to another Hydro, but that's okay because this will not be enough to KO, and they no longer can bait because I shielded the first. So now in comes a Fire Punch. I do grab a shield from my opponent, and we actually get a simultaneous knockout, which is pretty crazy. So Diggersby kind of able to flip that matchup. Now it's up to the RNG gods, and I clicked on the Pangoro at the last second. They came in with a Bastiodon, and that is instantly a win. So we were able to take that win. Imagine that. Toxapex into Dragonite in the next match. We've seen this matchup before. What I like to do is build up to the Sludge Wave and bait with a Brine, especially when they don't throw their energy like this. I know my opponent's going to want to get this energy off, so they're likely to shield. And my opponent actually does no shield there. However, one Dragon Claw is not going to be enough to knock out, so I will let this go. But my opponent is actually on Draco Meteor of all things, and that absolutely KOs from that range, but that allows me to get a nice quick attack farm down. And what is in the back but another banned Pokemon in Shadow Feraligatr. I will just let this go because one Hydro is not enough to knock out, whereas a Scorching Sands would put this pretty deep into its health, and it puts it into the yellow. What is in the back but a Venusaur, and Venusaur is tough for this backline, but Pangoro, no one told Pangoro that bad matchup sort of thing, so it kind of just wins everything. But yeah, here comes a second Night Slash. We're going to throw it on CMP with the Frenzy. And if my opponent wants to get off this energy, they will have to shield, and they do. I am probably going to double shield because I don't really think I can get a quick attack farm down before they can Vine Whip farm me down. And they actually come in with their Feraligatr. I'm going to over farm, play to the CMP tie here. With the Night Slash, they shield that to get this energy off, which is actually good for them because I get the boost, but this game is over now because I can get the quick attack farm down, I can live one Vine Whip, I can live two Vine Whips, and I'm able to now make it to a Fire Punch to outpace the Venusaur, and we're able to take that win. And yeah, that was the final match of the video, so that's going to be it for me from this video. That's the team. Toxapex, Diggersby, Pangoro. I explained it at the beginning. This thing is absolutely crazy. Diggersby as a safe swap in this meta I think is really strong. There are so many ghosts. Of course, a lot of the ghosts have super effective fighting type coverage now, which does hinder Diggersby a little bit, but the #1 ranked Pokemon in this cup is Corsola. Corsola has reclaimed its former glory at the top, but unfortunately for that Pokemon, Diggersby is a complete wall to it. So there is an argument to be made because of all the ghosts that you could go for Mudshot on Diggersby. However, I do think that the quick attack coverage is pretty nice on this Pokemon. It's also just a better damage per energy move than Mudshot, even though the energy is the same. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.